Our film begins with the king of the kingdom of Oria who takes his soldiers and heads to a specific cave. There he is attacked by a massive dragon, and within seconds it manages to kill all the soldiers. When it comes to the king's turn, he begs the dragon to forgive him, but we don't find out what happened. After hundreds of years in another place, we see a girl named Adi and her little sister Floria who, despite their simple appearance, we learn that their father is the king of this kingdom. It appears that they have recently been suffering from severe poverty and resource shortages, and that's why the sisters Adi and Floria go out to gather any items that may help the people. During this time they show that they are very kind, and while they are working they see a group of people from another kingdom visiting theirs. The girls are surprised and curious to know the reason for the visit. When they return to the city they observe the citizens fighting over food, and it appears that this is a usual scene for them. No one even tries to intervene. Adi approaches one of the soldiers and asks about the newcomers, and he says that they are strange women, but he doesn't know the reason for the visit. Adi gives the soldier the firewood she collected and asks him to let the people take what they need, showing that Adi is a very kind-hearted person, willing to do anything for her people. When she enters her father's room she sees the woman who came to visit them, and as soon as she sees Adi she stares at her and says that she will serve the purpose, and we learn that this woman is from the kingdom of Oria. After that she hands King Byford a letter from Queen Isabella, the current queen of Oria. As soon as he receives the letter she leaves quickly. He opens the letter and appears to be pleased. He then turns to Adi who is curious to know the content of the letter. He tells her that Isabella, the queen of Oria, wants to marry her to her son Prince Henry. The king thinks about her desire to travel the world and says that this is her only chance, especially since this kingdom is very rich and has fleets of ships and cars filled with gold, and so anything she wishes for will come true. We see that the king has made his decision and agrees to the marriage, especially after learning that they are willing to pay any dowry. The king sees this money as capable of saving his kingdom, so he explains everything to his daughter, saying that if they refuse the entire population will die soon due to the lack of food and water, and there is no other option but for her to agree. So Adi feels that she has to obey her father's orders. Within days we see the family heading to the kingdom of Oria, and while they are on the ship Adi stands at the edge and feels upset. Floria senses that her sister is anxious about the upcoming meeting. As they talk, their stepmother scolds them for standing in the cold and not taking care of themselves, showing that she loves them and is worried about them as if they were her own daughters. She asks Adi to wear her shawl so she doesn't get sick. During this time they are informed that they are nearing the kingdom, and suddenly they find themselves surrounded by a thick fog. They then see fire coming from a huge dragon which terrorizes them until they discover that it is just a statue. They all arrive at the kingdom amazed by the beauty of the palace and the number of servants there, until one of the servants welcomes them, apologizing for the royal family's absence and saying that they are praying. Afterward Adi and her family are guided to their rooms and they are told to make themselves comfortable, and it will be announced at dawn that she will meet the queen. It appears that Adi is very anxious, yet she tries to enjoy everything around her. While she is exploring she sees a beautiful girl on the balcony of the next room and waves to her. This girl seems to have been taken away by one of the servants, while Adi remains anxious and unable to sleep throughout the night. Floria then enters wanting to sleep beside her because she can't sleep alone in her room. The two girls talk and wish their mother was with them on such a day. Floria smiles at her sister, assuring her that everything will be alright. The next day is the time for their meeting with Queen Isabella and her son Prince Henry, who seem to be captivated by Adi's beauty. Isabella is impressed by Adi's intelligence and personality, while Floria admires Isabella and expresses her amazement at the beauty of the palace. Afterward Isabella and Henry request that he take Adi to show her around the place. During this time King Byford and Isabella decide to discuss the details, and here Henry and Adi begin to talk, with Henry agreeing to answer any question. Adi smiles and asks him if he is attracted to her or not, and she declares that she agreed to marry him to save her people and nothing more. She starts explaining the difficult circumstances in their land and emphasizes that she decided to sacrifice her happiness for the comfort of her people, and when she learns that he is also forced into marriage she is bothered by the fact that the soldiers follow them all the time. Henry tells her that he is used to that, yet she still feels uncomfortable. He admires her skill in horseback riding, which she learned from her mother, and on the other hand King Byford finishes his meeting with Isabella and his wife senses his distress, assuming that the agreement has fallen through. However, Byford reassures her that the wedding is still on, and refuses to discuss the reason for his discomfort. At this time, Henry decides to take Adie to a high mountain, and she seizes the opportunity to ask about the fire she saw coming from the cave. Henry states that it is a very important celebration for his family, and that it is a tribute to their ancestors, and so his mother chose that specific date for their wedding. Afterward, he shifts the topic, saying that his biggest wish is to travel the whole world. Adie is thrilled, especially since that is her dream too, and she hopes that they can achieve that dream together. It seems that Adie starts to change her perspective on the marriage, seeing it as a potential new beginning for the life she wishes for. Meanwhile, their stepmother feels that something is wrong, and when she goes to talk to Queen Isabella to find out what happened during the meeting, Isabella avoids conversing with her, almost deliberately wanting to cut the conversation short. At night, Floria sits with her sister Adie in their room pondering the wedding party. While they talk, their stepmother, who arrives out of her suspicions, says that she feels something wrong is happening and that she loves Adie very much. She warns her, especially after trying to understand from Byford, but he refused to say anything. Floria, who sees that they are a very good family enough to be from a great kingdom like this, gets interrupted by their stepmother, who sees this as not being a valid argument. Suddenly Byford enters, coming to take Adie to rest before the wedding. Adie disregards her stepmother's words because she saw Henry herself and feels comfortable with him. The next day, the girls receive help in preparing Adie for the wedding ceremony. Byford introduces Prince Henry to the people, and they announce that they are now married. Afterward, Isabella approaches to place the crown on Adie's head, showing the people that she is the new princess. Then we see Adie saying goodbye to her family as she prepares to leave with her husband. When she asks where they are going, Henry tells her that there is still a significant part of the rituals, and that part is related to the celebration she saw in the cave. Adie is very curious about this, and on their way to the cave, Henry holds her hand. Due to the difficulty of the path there, the family welcomes Henry, and they are wearing strange masks. They talk to Isabella, informing her that Adie will now join a large number of women who helped establish this kingdom. They give her a metal coin, and then begin telling her the story of their kingdom, stating that when their ancestors arrived on this island, they discovered that there were other creatures living there, including a female dragon that was the last of her kind. One day, the female dragon attacked the inhabitants and killed many of them. The king took some soldiers and entered her cave, intending to kill her to eliminate her threat, but the female dragon managed to kill all the soldiers with him and was about to kill him too. At the last moment, she changed her mind and decided to impose a different judgment, which was that he must abandon his 3 daughters to her, and in return he and his people could live peacefully with her on the island. Despite the king's love for his daughters, he had to agree due to his duty as a king towards his people. Queen Isabella continues speaking, saying that ever since the kingdom has celebrated 3 festivals each year in remembrance of these 3 daughters. Then Isabella takes a knife and wounds Henry and Adie on their hands, forcing them to hold hands and mix their blood. Then she declares to the people that now Adie has become one of the royal family, and that their blood runs in her veins. She requests Adie to throw the coin into a deep place in the cave, thus finishing the ritual. Henry approaches Adie to lift her under the pretense that it's part of the rituals, but surprisingly he throws her into the deep place. Adie falls into the cave's dark bottom, and due to the impact she loses consciousness. After hours, Adie regains consciousness, shocked by what has happened to her, while also relieved that she is still alive. She tries to call for anyone, but the place is completely empty, so she starts to cry out of fear. When she tries to climb the rocks, she gets injured and falls down. Suddenly she looks around and finds personal belongings belonging to other girls. Adie concludes that these girls were victims of the female dragon, and that she is the new victim. Afterward, she sees a light coming from afar, and when she walks towards it, she finds a burned bird. She tries to extinguish it using the dirt, but she gets burned in the same way, and they all fall to the ground and die. It becomes evident that the female dragon is responsible for this. Adie feels the dragon's presence around her, so she runs to hide until she hears the dragon calling her name. Despite being scared, Adie feels compelled to answer her. The female dragon states that she can smell the royal family's scent on her, and that she is accustomed to taking victims from this family, many of whom suffered due to what they did. It appears that Adie does not understand anything from her words. However, as soon as she senses that the dragon is approaching, she runs in the opposite direction to avoid the fire coming from her. Suddenly she finds the corpse of a girl in front of her, and recognizes from her necklace that this is the same girl she saw when she first arrived at the palace. Adie concludes that she was the First victim of the dragon, 80 continues to run until she reaches a narrow cave. Despite her many attempts to avoid the flames coming from the dragon, she injures her legs severely, so she tears a piece from her dress and wraps it around her legs. Then she uses her necklace to light her way and reaches a very narrow cave. She crawls inside until she reaches its end and falls to the ground. Nevertheless, she continues to fight to escape this place. 80 gets to a strange place filled with glowing creatures. At that moment she discovers that she has reached the edge of a high mountain and is on the verge of falling to her death. Suddenly she pulls out the dagger from her dress, which has a significant role in helping her hold on tight, and using it she manages to maintain her grip on the rocks. Afterward she takes a quantity of these glowing insects to light her way on her journey. She discovers a small lake. When she tries to drink from it, she finds that the water is not clean. Luckily she finds a lot of ice in the area, so she decides to drink from the melting water in the ice. Suddenly the ice starts to melt rapidly, and we learn that the female dragon has arrived, causing the ice to melt because of her fire. 80 searches for the nearest place to hide until she finds a small hole which is written inside as a safe place where the female dragon can't reach. 80 begins to feel safe until she looks around and sees personal items belonging to other girls, and also finds a long list of names of every girl who entered this cave. 80 is curious to know if any of them managed to escape from this cave or not. Exhausted, 80 falls asleep inside the hole and begins dreaming about the girls who entered this cave as they fight around her. When she wakes up, she sees that insects gathered around her wound. She tries to throw them away, but she realizes that these insects secrete a specific liquid which makes her wound heal very quickly. 80 is amazed by what she has seen, and because of that she places the insects on the other wounds on her hands. When she focuses, she finds that someone has drawn a map of the area. 80 manages to determine her current location and learns that there is only one way out of this cave. Despite the difficulty of the path, 80 knows that she has no other solution. After much struggle, she manages to reach the exit of the cave, which leads to a high place. She uses the crown that fell on the ground to climb up to that place, and while she is halfway up, she is on the verge of falling. It seems that the female dragon has managed to get to her and is waiting for her to fall to eat her. However, 80 continues to resist until she reaches the top of the place. Surprisingly, she finds herself on the top of a very high place, and there is no way down. Suddenly a group of soldiers appears in front of her. 80 wants to call them for help, but the distance is too great, and so her voice is not audible. 80 begins to feel despair. Suddenly she hears a voice calling her. The female dragon follows the source of the voice, whereas 80 becomes curious to know who came to save her. As she walks towards the source of the voice, she sees that her father, King Byford, is coming to save her, and he has brought a group of soldiers to help him. 80 hears her father's voice, so she walks towards the source of the sound to go to him. On her way, she sees the dead bodies of 3 dragonlings, who appear to have been killed as they were just hatching from their eggs. 80 concludes that the story she was told was untrue. We find out that the king who sought to settle on the island had ordered his soldiers to kill these 3 children, and afterward the female dragon killed the soldiers to take revenge on them. She decided to leave the king alive and take his 3 daughters so that he could feel the same pain he caused. Furthermore, she was to offer her 3 daughters continuously as atonement for what he had done. 80 regains consciousness upon hearing her father's voice, so she runs toward the sound. She sees the female dragon killing the soldiers, and she starts to approach Byford, who draws his sword to defend himself. However, the female dragon manages to knock the sword from his hand and capture him. When he asks about his daughter, the female dragon reassures him that she is still alive, and even says that she can smell her scent, which means she has been watching her from afar. The female dragon requests Byford to call her out, but 80 is hiding and is scared to reveal herself. Byford loudly tells 80 that he made a mistake when he agreed to sacrifice her to save his people. He says that he could not bear the torment of his conscience, which is why he returned to save her. Then he warns her not to come close because he fears for her. Suddenly the female dragon knocks him down, inflicting a severe wound on him. It appears that she intends to kill him. However, she suddenly feels a movement around her and runs around searching for 80. 80 takes advantage of this opportunity to see her father. Byford apologizes to his daughter for what he had done, showing that he feels regret. He tells her that she will find ropes to use to escape, and afterwards she will find Floria and their stepmother waiting for her to escape together. As soon as he finishes speaking, he dies. 80 hears the sound of the female dragon approaching, forcing her to flee and leave her father behind. Using the rope, she manages to escape from that place. The female dragon keeps chasing her, so 80 hides among the rocks while the female dragon causes many fires. As she searches for 80, the smoke spreads everywhere, and it appears that 80 is able to understand what happened. Realizing this, she begins to look for a substitute for 80 to offer to the female dragon. She bursts into the place where Floria and their stepmother are waiting for Byford to return with 80 to escape, and Floria cautions her about their stepmother. Afterward, Isabella commands her son Henry to throw Floria into the depths of the cave. Despite Henry's objections regarding what is happening, especially since Floria is still young, however, he feels compelled to follow orders. The next day, 80 wakes up after having fallen asleep among the rocks out of exhaustion. On her way back to the palace, she encounters her father, who informs her that they took Floria. 80 decides to return to the cave to save her sister. When she arrives at the cave, she uses the ropes to descend to the place where the female dragon is located. At that moment, the female dragon is sitting beside Floria, who is unconscious, and is certain that 80 will come to rescue her. The female dragon awaits her arrival until 80 indeed arrives and makes a noise to attract the dragon's attention. As soon as the female dragon leaves, 80 enters to check on her sister and supports her so they can escape together, but they hear the female dragon returning to them, and 80 fears for her sister. So 80 takes a large sword and approaches the dragon, trying to talk to her. She tells her that the kings deceived both of them. 80 starts talking about herself, noting that when Isabella told her the story, she did not mention that the king had killed her children long ago. She also explains that they are currently mixing the blood of any girl with that of the prince, so that the smell of her blood is mingled with that of the royal family, and thus the female dragon thinks she is one of them and wants to kill her. However, in reality, they do not belong to that royal family. The female dragon, however, does not believe her. As she approaches 80, 80 falls into a lake, and 80 emerging from the lake reveals many injuries on her body. She helps Floria, who throws her a sword so she can defend herself. However, it appears that the female dragon attacks her again, knocking her to the ground and starting to press down on her, trying to make her feel the pain that her children felt long ago. 80 manages to hold the sword she has. 80 musters her strength and strikes the female dragon's eyes multiple times, almost to death. She begins to explain that all the girls who entered this cave are innocent, and that Isabella is the one who planned all of this. 80 confronts the dragon with the fact that she has killed innocent girls just as the king killed her daughters long ago. The female dragon begins to feel that she has made a mistake and begins to feel guilty. She allows 80 to kill her to relieve her from this torment. However, surprisingly, 80 chooses to heal her instead. She takes the glowing insects and places them on the dragon's body, and the next day we see Isabella overseeing the wedding ceremony of Prince Henry with the third girl. They intend to hand her over to the female dragon. Suddenly 80 enters, demanding the bride to take her family and leave. The bride obeys the orders out of fear, and 80 speaks loudly in front of everyone, urging anyone who wants to leave to do so. Quickly before the place is destroyed, a small part of the attendees leave while the rest might feel mockingly towards her, yet they all freeze in shock when they see the female dragon entering and burning the place, causing the death of everyone inside except for 80, who emerges with the female dragon after they unite to take revenge on all who harmed them. After some time we see 80, Floria, and their stepmother learning that 80 is the heir to the kingdom of Oria after Henry's death. 80 insists that her stepmother be the one to rule the country due to her trust in her and her wisdom. One day 80 decides to take her sister and their stepmother to visit their kingdom. It is revealed that they have taken the female dragon with them, and that she has become a constant companion to 80, aiding her in every task she needs.